Let's bring my guy Tone in here.
Big Sales, how are you doing, sir?
What'd you make of that number I threw at you since 2012 to 2022? I didn't use last year's guys.
Right.
That 29 quarterbacks have been drafted and only 3 have taken teams to Super Bowls and 1 has won it, Mahomes.
That's a hell of a number. And if it was so easy for you to find that metric, it makes me wonder, why is it so hard for organizations, to build teams? There's a culture to things, right? There's people like to stick with the status quo and don't like to buck the trend, right? If you're a bad team, you're supposed to draft the top prospect in that draft at quarterback. And my thing is, how are we sure if his game translates? And I was talking about this earlier. I don't care where I draft the guy. If I draft the quarterback in the first round, the second round, and the third round, right? That's not going to happen. But let's say I did that. I don't care where I drafted you. Who's executing at the highest level? That person's going on the field. But we live in this era now where, because I drafted him here, I have to treat him with kid gloves.
It's a class system.
Classism is in every shape and every form in life. We just don't notice it because we're blinded by the lights and the fanfare and the jerseys and all that kind of stuff. But the NFL is a hierarchy. And when you're drafted in the first round, you're gifted certain luxuries that a second rounder or a third rounder is not given, especially if you're a quarterback.
Or 7th.
Right, especially at 7th. So to your point, right, that's why it's so hard for people to look at Brock Purdy and say, he's a player. They don't want it. They don't want that to happen. That's why it was so hard. Even still to this day, Jalen Hurts got paid. And you still got people saying, they couldn't wait. They couldn't wait for that down slope to happen.
Yes.
They really couldn't wait. So to your point about your original statement about that stat, right? It makes you think, damn, have we been building teams all wrong? Why do I feel the need to draft a guy in the first round? Because they tell me to? Because the world says he's supposed to be drafted there?
Can I ask you something about the draft?
It's interesting. It makes you think.
Can I ask you something about the draft? Do you think the NFL, by design, makes these first rounders more of a star so that in their offseason, it makes the draft more? 50 million people watch the draft, dude. Mm-hmm. It's the only non-contact event the NFL puts on every year that creates that kind of viewership. And also, now they're doing this, going to Cleveland. Do you know cities and teams pay now in excess of $500,000 to host the draft parties
at
first
the draft
at their places?
At first, it was at the same place every year. What was that?
That's
Radio
right.
City?
It was in New York City.
Yeah, and
now they've moved it around and they're taking bids on cities.
Right. Now they turned it into a whole
like a Super Bowl kind of deal with cities bidding.
Exactly. The NFL just finds more creative ways to
build up their offseason.
Exactly. And
because these first rounders, look at this. 95% of these first rounders, maybe even more, a higher number, they don't really have impact on your football team.
As a matter of fact, I'm willing to argue more quarterbacks drafted in the second round and beyond have won more Super Bowls than quarterbacks won in the first round.
Yes, I would agree.
And I don't even know that for a fact. I would have to look that up. But I'm willing to bet that's the case. So it makes you wonder, do we view the quarterback position as it relates to the draft all wrong, right? And honestly, when you draft a guy in the second, third, or fourth round, quite frankly, in my opinion, he's hungrier. And that's a guy I'm willing to bet on, as somebody who's been told all his life that he's the shit.
See, your mentality is what I think won in New England. I think Bill has your mentality. I do, Tone, which is this. I don't give a fuck if you're taking it in the first round, second round, third round. If I find out that you're a player, because I run it, it's my ship, it's my call. Remember something, if you're Nick Sirianni, it's funny you say that. Well, Nick Sirianni's not going to play Milton Williams and start Milton Williams. You know why? Because he's not a first rounder. Exactly. He spent 2 first rounders on Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, and there's a first rounder in Fletcher. Milton Williams is not going to be a starter because you know why? Even though he should have been the last 6 games.
Milton Williams outplayed him in the second half of the season.
Right. And get this.
How do you sell that?
He'll never do that because why? Nick's got to go, well, that's bucking the system versus Howie's pick. And it contradicts the personnel people and also what else? The cash register.
Exactly.
Because he's making more than him.
Mm-hmm.
Tone, it's a front when you're in the league, it's a frustrating thing as a player to see.
I can only imagine
how those guys get. You're like this. And by the way, here's something else.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a higher pick and they take 2 or 3 guys behind you and they think they can get away with it, they'll can me, keep those 2 guys because they're making half the money.
Exactly.
So you're kind of caught in the middle of that. They're constantly trying to fire you.
It must be so frustrating for a guy who truly understands and loves football to exist in the NFL.
Oh, it's the worst.
Because I can only imagine how many think about how many coaches in this league have so many players on their rosters that they know is outplaying their first round pick. But they can't put them on the field. You want to know why?
I went home crying. I'm not lying. It's a mentally. Look, how about this? You're watching yourself on film. And because get this, here's my first day. Because he had a guy from Alabama named Kurt Jarvis, Mike Dubose. Mike Dubose was a former Alabama head coach. He played for Bear Bryant. I played for Ray. Ray drafted me. I was so happy on draft day. My first day in the building, Mike Dubose goes, we got 2 Alabama guys. I don't know why we drafted you, but you're here. And I looked at him and I went, it was my first fucking day. I didn't even have a helmet yet. And he was already planning on my demise. I'd watch myself on film and go, I'm better than this dude. I'm better than this dude. And at the end of the year, that's when I started getting sick. But I was like this. I'm like, he's not crediting me on tackles. And all of a sudden you're like, I can just sense, because they drafted them. Back then we had 12 rounds. Mm-hmm. And then like the 8th round or 9th round, they had them cheaper. You go home, man, you're mentally beat up because these coaches and these personnel people, they would rather lose a game and play and go to the owner, especially a guy like Hugh Culverhouse, if they're saving him money. Like, here's why Doug Williams had to leave Tampa. Get this. Doug Williams put the Bucs in the playoffs 4 of the 5 years he was a starting quarterback. But because Leroy Selman, Leroy, I love you, but you're wrong here. I love you to death. You know I do. But Culverhouse, the racist piece of shit that he was, would absolutely come in there and look at Doug and go, how can I pay you more than him? And Doug goes, I'm the quarterback.
Right.
And he goes like this. They offered him a contract that was less than the money he was making on his new deal. That's why he went to the USFL and then he had to go to Washington.
That's, Sills.
Think about get this. Doug Williams' wife had just died.
I want the best football players on the field, Sills.
It doesn't work like that.
And I know, but it should. And it's unfortunate because, again, I'm talking from the enthusiast perspective, the fan perspective, right? We invest in these teams just as much as anybody else, right? With our hard-earned cash, our blue-collar money.
Completely.
And for us to be robbed of the best players being put on the field because of class or a hierarchy or where you drafted them, or you want to save your GM's face because he drafted a guy that's clearly if you
that's the game.
You draft a player in the first round who's not playing as well as a guy at the same position that you drafted in the 4th round, but because your GM drafted the guy in the first round, you can't make your GM look bad. So therefore, you got to keep that guy out there to validate your GM's decision. Come on, man. Now we talking about feelings. And this is football, baby. I don't have time for feelings. I'm trying to win.
How do you think Boston
games.
Scott, I'm awake or you? How do you think Boston Scott feels being on the Eagle roster right now?
Boston Scott, no, he better than Kenny Gainwell. If you ask him,
I think he is better.
If you put Boston Scott on a lie detector test, he better than Kenny Gainwell. He knows it. But guess what? Kenny Gainwell was drafted in the 3rd, 4th round. Boston Scott, I think he was an undrafted guy. He was picked up off the Saints practice squad. The Eagles kept him around since then. He doesn't have the traditional path to the NFL. You know what I mean? But I'm pretty sure if you hook Boston Scott up to a lie detector test, he better than Kenny Gainwell. And guess what? I'm willing to argue that he is.
I would answer this question here to a couple people in here saying that Sileo is one of the people that can't wait for Jalen to have his down season. I'm impervious to that. I don't give a shit either way. All I care about is what a player does in his performance. If he plays well, he gets kudos. If he doesn't play well, he gets shit on.
Look, I'll
That's
say this
my
real quick,
take,
Sills.
and I'll
I'll say
always
this.
be there with that. And I've always been consistent on that.
Listen to this, Sills. I'll say this, right? Originally, and I'll be as transparent as I'm allowed to be. Originally, I used to always say to myself, why is Sills so hard on Hurts? I don't get it. Why is he going at Hurts like that? What is it? It doesn't make sense. What is this agenda? I'll be honest. I used to think that as a spectator before. And then we started communicating more. We started working together more. I started hearing you flush out your points. And then it made me think, oh, okay, that's not the case at all. He actually doesn't have a dog in the race. He's just calling it how he believes he sees it. And he's being honest. And I can always respect somebody being honest with me rather than trying to tell me what I want to hear. That's how you get through life. So, in my humble opinion, when it comes to getting the best players on the field or paying guys a certain amount of money, your perspective, in my humble, because I lean on your expertise in this regard. You played the game. You played in many leagues. You understand how this business works. When you say certain things about roster building and the mentality of the players in the locker room and how it goes, I really listen to that, because how can I listen to anybody else? You're the closest thing I got to that kind of experience.
The locker room dynamic is more than what people think when it comes to how organizations build a roster. Because, Tone, I mean, when you're drafted, they're going to immediately look to replace you. And they're going to look to replace you with another higher pick or lesser money pick. That's just what personnel people do, because that's their job, is to
their job is to
evaluate
always
the
look
roster.
to replace. Can we replace? Can we improve? They're always looking.
Because
no one's
now
job
with
is ever
free
safe.
agency, you have more accountability to your owner financially.
Yes.
And the owner needs to know. That's why when you say this, hey, Sills, I'm playing this guy. No, you're not. If he's a fourth rounder and that guy was drafted in the second, you draft him, you play him. Hey, what if he's not as good? Fuck that. He's paid. I get this. The owner would rather. Hey, how long did it take you to know that Jalen Reagor sucked? How many years did it take for you to know he sucked?
It took me that one season.
Okay. Well, why was he on the team for 3?
Man, you got me. They drafted him in the first round. Of course. That's all it is.
That's not a reason to keep him.
They drafted him in the first round. As simple as that.
And you know why? The head coach had no say in dumping him.
Guess what?
Belichick would have. You know that guy, N'Keal Harry, that they took out of Arizona State up there
in the first round,
New England?
The receiver, right?
I thought he sucked at Arizona State. He couldn't get off the ball. He didn't have a great release. And I said, that's a mistake. Bills had better success in free agency, finding guys like Amendola, Edelman, and making a trade for Welker, Deion Branch, even using Troy Brown, dual players. I thought he had a better success rate doing that. But for me, I go like this. He drafts this guy in the first round. I'm like, Bill, that's a mistake. And get this, Bill went like this. The guy was off the team the next year.
Sure was. And when it comes to Jalen Reagor, I will give Howard credit for this. He got him out of there. Within 2 years. So I will give him. I will give him credit for that.
Bad.
It's not that bad. He got him out of there. He got him out of there the offseason before the Eagles went on that run. But listen to this, right? You had a guy, in my opinion. Now, people could feel how they want to feel about this, but in my opinion, they had a wide receiver on the roster and by the name of Greg Ward, who not the most talented.
Was that last year or the year before?
Greg Ward was on the roster, I think, the year before or last year.
21?
I think he was on it. I think he was on the 22 roster, but he was on the practice squad.
Okay.
But Greg, they had a guy on the roster by the name of Greg Ward Jr. Not the most athletic, not the most talented. Wasn't highly scouted. I think he was a former quarterback in college, right? But he became a wide receiver.
Yep.
And he had so much respect from his peers, like a Devontae Smith.
Even Jalen.
Right? He had respect. He had to respect the A.J. Brown. He had to respect all those guys, Jalen Hurts, right? He had to respect the Carson Wentz when Carson Wentz was still playing well. You know what I'm saying? Greg Ward, at a point, was the Eagles' most reliable receiver. And I'm willing to argue that Greg Ward, in my opinion, would have ended up being a better wide receiver than Jalen Hurts. I think he is to this day. Greg Ward is a player, again, not the most athletic, not the biggest body, but one thing I will say about him, you threw him the ball, he caught it. One thing I will say about him, he knew how to get open. He knew how to use his body to get open. He knew how to find the soft spaces in the zone. He was a former quarterback, so he used that to his advantage. Again, because he wasn't the guy or he didn't have a name or all that kind of stuff, it's easy to cut a guy like that. And
I think the Eagles looked at him
not be held accountable for a guy like that.
I think the Eagles looked at him because like that because Hines Ward was a quarterback in college. And, you know, when you're converting people like that, get this. I like that, actually, that transition going from a quarterback to wideout because, again, you know pass routes, you know lanes, you know what a quarterback's trying to do. You know if a quarterback's in trouble, you come back to him. You find space. I actually think that would help a lot of wide receivers. Like if you played them at quarterback, like on scout team a couple times, so that they can get a sense of what a quarterback's looking at when you know what I'm saying? Because look, you're here and you're looking at the quarterback. I'd like to have the wide receivers sometimes get a perspective of what the quarterback's looking at when he sees you.
Exactly.
So to me, that's development. You know what I mean?
Completely. And my thing is, again, Greg Ward, he was like his young players, like, again, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, they leaned on him for insight. They wanted to know what he was seeing. Greg Ward was the consummate professional. Look, he made some good money on the practice squad. I'm pretty sure he made some good money, to make a good living. And I really hope everything's going well for him. But I look at Greg Ward, he was the best wide. He was better than Rager. He was better than Quez Watkins. But because he didn't have the Quez Watkins speed or he didn't have the Jalen Rager first-round pedigree, he couldn't make it to the football field. Because how can you justify playing Greg Ward? How can you justify it?
Speed is overrated.
He caught everything you threw to him. Everything you threw to him, he caught it. Everything. He never dropped the. I can't remember Greg Ward dropping the ball.
Think about that. What I just said to you. Speed is overrated when you don't have good hands.
Exactly. I hate
it's overrated.
I used to talk about why is Quez Watkins on the field, and I just kept hearing people say, "Oh, the speed, he takes the top." How can you take the top off a defense if you're not catching the ball? How? It makes no sense. So again, man, back to the original point. I know this is not the lay of the land, but I want the best players and the most reliable players on the field. I don't want somebody on the field just because they got a name or they were drafted somewhere.
The league has gotten away from that. Because you know why?
They have gotten away from that.
The head football coaches. You know, it's being reported now that Belichick turned down the Atlanta job.
It's being reported that he turned it down.
Turned it down.
The original report was that they cut ties with him. See how they spin.
Boomer Esiason is reporting that he turned it down. And he turned it down because they wanted to maintain control of the personnel. And get this, Tone, think about it. You see the stupid-ass media people like Colin Cowherd and them going, hey, well, Bill wants to be in charge of the draft. No, Bill wants to be in charge of the money of what you're talking about. Okay? It's one thing to miss on a receiver, but it's another thing, Tone, to play a player because he was drafted in the second round over a fifth rounder. And get this. Do you know how many places Tom Brady would never have played? 95% of them. Tom Brady would never have played anywhere in the NFL. You would never have known.
That's a good point.
Tom Brady, because you know why? They had just signed Bledsoe to a $120 million contract.
If any other organization was in that exact same circumstance, Tom Brady
would never have played.
Brady, we would have never been blessed with Brady's performances.
Kurt Warner. He would have had to have gone to 10 different places before he got his chance.
And Lord knows if he even would have been able to live up to the billing because of the stability that the Patriots provided. You know what I'm saying? So it's just
think about what I'm saying.
The Patriots won 7 Super Bowls in 20 years. 7 Super Bowls. But they're doing it wrong.
This is not about just going who's the best edge, who's the best corner. This is about having the autonomy over the players that you pick in your department, in your analytics department, where Belichick goes, I don't care what you say. I'm playing that guy because he's, like you said, he's better. Well, it doesn't go like that in Philly. That doesn't go like that in many places. Those old coaches had to say, well, this kid here is going to play over this guy here. The analytics department,
Perfect
the
example.
scouting department, these general managers, they do not want to release that because the owner's purse is involved with many of those decisions and jobs are involved in it. That's why you don't have a repeat Super Bowl champion every year. It's because you have too many people that have a say in the structure of how you're building a roster.
Perfect example. N'Kobe Dean. He was drafted in the 3rd round.
This guy does not belong on that roster.
You had T.J. Edwards in the building, a guy who was a legitimate starting linebacker. Undrafted, but you developed him. But you let him walk because you had faith in your 3rd round pick who didn't show you anything to say, to validate the move. So again, that goes back to our point. A hierarchy. Guys with draft pedigree getting more of a leash than guys who actually have earned it on the field in live action play.
That's the culture of the league.
I know a lot of people probably get burnt out by me saying the whole TJ Edwards thing, and it's a revolving door with me, and it's something I just can't wrap my mind around, and I probably won't ever move on from it until they find another linebacker that can really, replace him, in my opinion, because they have yet to find a linebacker that played to that level, in my opinion. Zach Cunningham did not play to that level. Nicholas Morrow did not play to that level, and N'Kobe Dean did not play to that level.
Well, let me say this one thing to you about Nicholas Morrow. Nicholas Morrow, there was a point in the season when he was becoming one of the higher rated linebackers. You know what they did? They stunted 2 growths.
Correct.
At one time, when they put Dean back in, took him out, and get this, why would you start N'Kobe Dean over Nicholas Morrow? Well, he's a 3rd rounder. This guy was somebody we cut and we don't respect. And so that's the mentality, Tone. Right there is what the NFL is built on right there. They put a kid in a position where he didn't deserve it, didn't earn it, but they drafted him. That's the way they looked at it. And it's a hierarchy system in Philly. And this is why you have inconsistency and roster building.
I'm so glad you said that. Nicholas Morrow and I completely forgot about that. Nicholas Morrow and Zach Cunningham, they were starting to figure it out. And they were getting better and better and better and better every week. I thought they were too. I think any Eagles fan can admit that, right? Nicholas Morrow and Zach Cunningham were starting to figure it out. Now, were they the best safety? The best linebackers? No. But they were stabilizing the position little by little, play by play, snap by snap. But then N'Kobe Dean gets healthy again, and now you throw him out there, and now we're rotating linebackers. What are we doing?
Let me ask you this. If Tom Brady was on the Eagles and Howie Roseman was general manager, would Tom Brady have been a starter in Philly?
Can you say that one more time? I lost you.
If Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th round by the Eagles, like this McKee kid,
right?
Do you think that they would have given him the keys to the team or putting him in there, or would they have gotten someone else and drafted someone else higher?
I'm glad. That's a beautiful example. Let's make it even more interesting, right? Remember, they drafted McNabb was in the league before Brady, right? So you draft McNabb, and then a couple years later or a year later, you draft Brady, but you end up paying McNabb to the Eagles, bench McNabb and play Brady because he's clearly outplaying.
Yeah, if McNabb got hurt,
right?
Do you think they would have traded McNabb?
No.
Brady wouldn't have saw the field.
No.
They'd have treated him like a backup, and as soon as he was ready, they'd put him back in.
Yep.
Think about that for a minute.
Yep. Just think about that.
Tom Brady, he's Tom Brady because his hard work, but he's Tom Brady because you know why? Belichick didn't have that narcissist mentality that if you're a 1st-round draft choice, like how he looks at people, okay, and how he looks at hierarchy, Bill looks at the best player.
That's why
doesn't look at the best player.
That's why I look at the 49ers and I say, I respect it.
Because you know why? John Lynch is a Hall of Fame player who knows the hierarchy system.
What round was
knows how that works.
What round was he drafted in?
I think he was a 2nd or 3rd. I don't believe he was a 1st rounder by the Bucs. I can't remember what round John Lynch went out of Stanford.
He was drafted in the 3rd round, 82nd
Okay.
overall in 1993 as a DB.
He
Wow.
knows the
Damn.
hierarchy. He knows
He's
the
been there.
hierarchy. He was actually
Listen.
drafted higher as a baseball player. If you look at his resume, he was actually drafted higher as the Marlins baseball player than he was a football player. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he may have been a 1st-round pick by the Marlins.
That's crazy. But listen to this. A 3rd round pick, 82nd overall, Hall of Famer, 9-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro, Super Bowl champion, 2019 Pro Football Writers of America Executive of the Year, 2006 Alan Page Award. And that guy was drafted in the 3rd round. Imagine if he ended up in a situation where a guy was ahead of him and they didn't give him the shot. The NFL was all about getting this. Okay.
There was Dungy when okay. Sam Weiss was the head coach. And Sam Weiss brought him in, drafted him. When Dungy got there, Dungy walked in the locker room and said, I don't care where you're drafted. I don't care what round you're drafted. I have no caring of that. Best player plays. Guy who works the hardest plays. And most importantly, the guy that is durable will play. That's why in that whole team, when Dungy builds a team, he looks at certain player. He understands because he's a former player too. Dungy played with those Steeler teams. He was there with Noel when they were there building that 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. You see, I think there's something to that when you don't have football people in your personnel department, like that schoolhouse library you have in Philly. There's nobody in the building who's a fucking player.
Isn't it ironic
that they don't have
that
the mentality that the players have? Look at the teams that are in the freaking Super Bowl. You got people that are all over that Kansas City organization that are football people that Andy's put in place.
San Fran,
same thing. Around it.
San Fran, same thing.
Look at that. Kyle Shanahan grew up in the NFL with his dad. Lynch, a Hall of Fame player. I mean, there's no getting around why you, because see, again, when people go, well, Bill, he didn't get a job. You know, Bill doesn't want you, Tone, or Howie going like this. No, we got to play this guy because I drafted this guy. Fuck that. I'm playing a guy who's going to give me the best chance to win. No, you're not. I'm going to go. I think this is what went on with Doug.
But here's the thing, right? Here's what GMs don't realize. Every player on that roster, regardless if you drafted him or he was undrafted, keep in mind, GMs, you still found that player. So you have to, if a 1st-round pick that you drafted gets outplayed by a 5th rounder or a guy that was undrafted, stop being so hung up on the fact that, damn, I missed on the 1st-round pick.
That's his job, though.
I hear you, but your job is also to find players, to find diamonds in the rough. They're in my opinion, a GM's job goes well beyond just the 1st round. In my opinion, you make your real money 2nd round and beyond. 1st round,
the GMs are the big spenders of other people's money.
That part too.
Doesn't that suck? Doesn't that suck? Because
it's deflating.
Really can't do your job.
It's deflating. I'll say that. It's deflating because, in my opinion, I look at GMs and I say, you have a responsibility to do right by the 7th round draft, the 7th round draft, and also you have a responsibility to find players in the undrafted pool.
Nope, not one thing right there. You have a responsibility to the owner.
It's sad. I'm clear. It's funny.
Didn't it suck?
It's clear.
I hate to do this to you.
Yeah, I know.
It's really,
I know. I could tell because the fact of the matter is, I look at it like this. When you're a GM, right? And yes, your job is okay. I'm glad you said that. The job of the GM is to look out for the money of the owner, right? So, owner, am I not looking out for your money if I'm able to find super talented players in the 5th, 6th, 7th round and also who are undrafted? I got them for the cheap. And our roster is tremendous.
Well, then why'd you waste that 1st-round draft choice on the guy that sucked?
Everyone misses. Pick. Hey, listen, you win some, you lose some. Everyone misses at some point.
Oh, okay.
Everybody misses, right?
Don't make it happen 3 more times because guess what? There won't be a 4th.
That's See, okay, real quick. And again, I'm just trying to understand.
See,
this,
John
right?
Lynch.
I'm just trying to understand.
John Lynch saved his job. You know how?
He
Brock
did.
Purdy.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So that's more to my question. And help me understand this. You mean to tell me if I miss on the first round pick, but my second round pick and beyond, I find the starters and Pro Bowlers, I could lose my job?
When you put up 3 1s in your team's future, yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's a different situation.
Okay.
But if we got the 22nd overall pick, okay, the Eagles have the 22nd overall
No, you're
pick.
right. If you fuck up the first round and you're slamming dunking in third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth,
and
I'm
undrafted,
good with it.
And that's my point.
Because I think the first round's more of a gamble anyway.
Yes, and that's my point. How can I get mad at somebody when the odds are already against them? So,
well, remember something. First round, big money. Second round, big money. Third round, even big money today. So you got to remember, Tone, you're coming from the player's ability, not the money. The owner looks at the money first because he doesn't know that guy from one widget to the next.
Right. They're not football people. All they
That's
know
right.
is money.
They're not football people. They pretend to be. That's why they go like this. And this is what always frustrating when I hear we played at Georgia. Who fucking cares? It's the NFL. Say the SEC. The kid's in the SEC. Okay. If he's in the NFC East, that matters nothing.
Right. The only thing the SEC buys me is it tells me that you played up against some high caliber competition.
And your odds of making it are better.
Yes, your odds are better.
But you're meat to me. See, to me, you're meat. You're not good. I don't know if you're good. I never say this on a Monday after a weekend draft. Hey, Sills, what do you think of the draft? I always address it this way. Did they address needs?
Yes.
I never go like this. Hey, we got a really good. Now, the Carter kid was different because you could have made an argument. He could have been the first pick in the draft.
Yeah.
Like if you were going to redraft it, you'd go CJ Stroud. You would probably go Jalen Carter.
Then Devin Witherspoon.
Witherspoon. Shit, that kid Gonzalez in New England was good before he got hurt.
Yeah. Who's the kid that's is it a Seattle kid that was drafted in the later rounds and he's up for Rookie of the Year? Who is that?
I know the kid from the Rams that Kobe.
The Rams. That's who it is. The Rams.
Kobe Turner was taken in the 4th round or 3rd round from Wake Forest.
Right, and he's up for Rookie of the Year.
He's got 7 sacks.
You feel what I'm saying?
So he's in the top 10, right?
Right. So it's just one of those things. Like if Fred Warner was redrafted, he's a top 5 pick.
Top 5 pick
easily.
Look, Jason Kelsey's drafted and redrafted. He's
top 10
top
pick.
10 pick. Easily, man. All right. I got to ask you some of these questions here now.
Yes. Let's have some fun.
Do you think the business model between Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman is also, if Nick Sirianni's on the hot seat, do you think that's an evaluation period right now as well? Or do you not? Because look, Tone, the coordinators and the coaches they hired, and I said this last hour, I don't think they've upgraded. I think what they've done, I think they've upgraded, but they're not changing. I think you got a better Brian Johnson, and I think you got a more experienced Sean Desai because they're running the same shit.
All they did was bring in people that were more experienced at doing what they want,
and better position coaches.
Right, and I could respect the quality of those hires, but I don't know if they're good. I don't know if they're good hires yet, but I know they're quality hires, so I can respect it to that extent. But to your point about Howie Roseman, I think he should be evaluated just as much as Nick Sirianni's been evaluated, in my opinion.
That relationship eventually has to be asked.
And that's my point. At some point, Jeffrey Lurie, at what point do you put the team in front of your relationship? Because in my opinion, I've always felt like the relationship has superseded the team.
It is. And this is where I'm going to tell you why I asked you the question.
There's no GM in football who survived 3 coaches. Name another GM outside of Howie Roseman that survived 3 coaches. Give me one.
I can't.
It doesn't happen.
He can't use Jerry Jones as one. He owns a fucker.
Right. He owns
it. So you can't use him. Oh, hey. I do not believe that dynamic will ever change. Because it hasn't. That shit went on a little less with Joe Banner because of Reed.
I'm trying to figure out what Howie Roseman has ever done to make
The Super Bowl.
No, beyond that though. I'm trying to figure out what has he ever done to really make him just have this undying faith in this man. Like truly. Because when you really think of that Super Bowl, I will give Howie Roseman credit. He made some pivotal moves throughout the season. He traded for Jay. He found LeGarrette Blount at a reasonable contract. He made a lot of moves personnel-wise that solidified the roster. But once Carson Wentz got hurt,
he alienated a Super Bowl winning coach.
Yeah, for sure. And then on top of that, once Carson Wentz got hurt, at that point, I give all grace and credit to Doug Peterson. When Carson Wentz got hurt, Doug Peterson had maybe the hardest coaching job in football. He had to find a way to coach up a backup quarterback who was a month away from retiring. He had to be convinced. Doug Peterson went to go see him and said, "Hey, just come back for one season and then make your mind up from there." And he comes back and wins a Super Bowl. And that completely changes the trajectory of his career. But again, Howie Roseman should be evaluated just as much as everybody else. He has missed on Andre Dillard. He missed on Jalen Reagor. He missed on
Andre Dillard.
I said him. He missed on J.J. Whiteside in the second round. Terrible. Like his misses aren't just like, damn, like, okay, like the player didn't measure up. He's drafting guys that we don't even like really know.
How about this? I think he overdrafted Jordan Davis.
As of right now, that's looking like a reach. Because to your point, if we're looking at it from a game by game perspective, Jordan Davis is only really giving us 7 or 8 strong games.
Yeah.
In 2 seasons.
Right.
That's 34 games. That's 34 games.
8. That's the 13th pick.
And if we're doing math here, you mean to tell me he's only good 23% of the time?
Hey, Ben, that's not good enough for me.
For a first rounder, it's not.
That's why I told you he was down in the 20s. He was somewhere down there. He wasn't 13th. That's not a top 15 player. That's not Fletcher Cox.
Now, I will say this. To be fair to the player, he still has that. He's still on the rookie deal. It's not killing you, but you better hope he figures it out.
You going to the money, mother. Look at you going to the money. It's right.
You better hope he figures it out.
You're right. Go to the money
because we see the talent.
Pick.
We see the talent.
Yes.
But you better hope he figures it out for an extended season.
Saying the potential word to me. Again.
I didn't say it. I didn't say it.
Okay.
I didn't say it.
But you're right on the money. You're right on the money thing.
Better hope he figures it out.
Yes.
Because as of right now, today,
right on the dough.
Listen, today, I'm not picking up the 5th-year option today. If you had to ask me, am I picking up the 5th-year option on Jalen Carter? Yes. Am I picking up the 5th-year option on Jordan Davis? Not so sure.
How about Devontae?
Hell yeah. Hell yes.
So you're going to pick the 5th-year option up instead of extending him?
No. So typically what happens is they pick the 5th-year option up and extend them. You know, what they do is the 5th-year option, the 5th year gives them that additional year at the rookie pay scale, but they still extend beyond the 5th-year option. Oh. So what I would do, I'm picking up the 5th-year option because I plan to pay him.
So at the end of next year, you're going to give him an extension with a 3-year deal on it. 3-year extension, basically.
So, all right, Devontae's entering year 4, right? He's entering year 4.
Yeah.
They have to decide to pick up the option this
January 8th of next year.
Right. They got to pick up the option come this year, right?
No, not this year. January 8th of next year in 25. You could start doing that on the 5th year.
They can start negotiating then?
Yeah, that's what they did with Hurts.
Okay. But I think they can pick up the option beforehand, correct?
I didn't think they could. I thought they had, because that rookie deal's guaranteed.
Right. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. But
I think it's January 8th because Burrow and Hurts were the first up.
Right, right,
on
right.
being negotiated, and that happens around January 7th or 8th of this year.
Right. And the Bengals, they picked up
But
Burrow's
Jalen had
fifth-year
the
option.
advantage because he wasn't a first rounder.
Right.
So there wasn't a fifth-year option.
Exactly. And that's why Jalen Hurts' contract looked the way it, panned out the way it did. But if I'm the Eagles, I'm picking up Devontae's fifth-year option and I'm extending him. I'm gonna tack on maybe 3 or 4 more years at the end of that. That way I have an additional year at the rookie pay scale.
And the more years you give him, the lower the base, and you can kind of hopefully try to deal something there with AJ, or you're gonna have to move AJ.
They're gonna have to figure that out. I don't know why people are acting like that's such an easy decision. Like
It's not.
it's very complicated what's about to happen between AJ Brown and Devontae Smith financially. It's very complicated.
Hey, that's what's going to lead me to this last question for you. Do you think Jalen Hurts is closer in talent to Patrick Mahomes or Brock Purdy?
Why are you doing this to me, man? I'll put it this way. I don't think anyone is close to Patrick Mahomes. I don't think anyone is. Not even Josh Allen, not like him.
You don't think Joe Burrow is?
Nope, no. I don't think Joe Burrow is close to Patrick Mahomes.
I should call him Joe Namath Burrow. That's who he's starting to remind me of, is Joe Namath.
He better stay healthy, man.
Dude, I'm with you, because guess what?
He's already an older young quarterback.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. I'm here with you here. Look, hey, man, you keep telling me how good you are, and I know how good you are, but at the end of the day, you're missing fucking tons of games here. I can't build a team around you. I can't.
Yeah, that's a fact.
So here's my take on this with Hurts. You're right. Mahomes is in the Brady. Who else didn't have a lot of people that he needed to win? See, personally, get this. I think Jalen Hurts closer to Peyton Manning, Brock Purdy, Troy Aikman, and look at the quarterbacks I'm naming. I don't think those are bad dudes.
Right, they're Hall of Famers.
Terry Bradshaw, who had 2 Hall of Fame receivers,
Terry Bradshaw
Hall of Fame running back, Hall of Fame center.
Yeah, Terry Bradshaw had that entire draft was all Hall of Famers. I've never seen that before in my life.
But look who was in the huddle for Bradshaw.
Yeah, Lynn Swann.
He had Swann and Stallworth, Hall of Famers. You had Franco Harris, Hall of Famer, and you had Webster, center, Hall of Famer, and the quarterback's a Hall of Famer.
That's the nucleus of your team.
Okay, well, he needed those people to win.
Right.
So what I'm saying to you is this. There's the outliers are like Mahomes and Brady that need one guy.
Montana, that first year, he didn't have any guys.
That's a great one. Montana, because he only had Freddie Solomon and Burt Cooper and Wendell Tyler. But then Rice came.
Right.
Then John Taylor came. And then they had Roger Craig. Get this. Not one offensive lineman on that 4 Super Bowl run or that 5 Super Bowl run is in the Hall of Fame.
That's crazy.
It was Montana. Dude, Montana was – he was stupid great.
Not even our guy, Randy Cross, man.
No. And Randy's probably – him and Harris Barton are probably close to being guys that you would consider, but not even – they'll never get in.
The Hall of Very Good.
Randy.
The Hall of Very Good, right?
Yeah, the Hall of Really Good.
Yeah.
So my point is, when I say this with Hurts, and he's closer to Purdy, but people look at Purdy because of what you said a couple minutes ago.
It's because we were
he's drafted. A 7th rounder. I'm comparing him to a 7th rounder. When get this, I'm comparing him to Terry Bradshaw, Troy Aikman, anybody you want that had a lot of great players on their teams. Look at how people get crazy when I say Hurts is closer to Brock Purdy. Well, Brock Purdy's closer to Aikman too, with Debo and with McCaffrey, Emmitt Smith. Look at Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman,
Michael Irvin,
the offensive line, which was insane, and a Hall of Fame head coach.
Yep, can't forget our guy Irvin,
Michael Irvin.
It's like, yep. It's so the thing is right here. And that's why it's always funny, like both Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy were underdogs. They were 2 players that people did not want to bet on. They were waiting for them to fail. I mean, I understand Eagles fans. We do have a pseudo. We kind of have a pseudo rivalry with the Niners. So that's kind of that's kind of baked in. So we kind of don't like Brock Purdy by default. Yeah, we're quick to criticize Brock Purdy because he's the Niners quarterback. But I feel like if Purdy was further away from our purview, I feel like Eagles fans would be more supportive of Brock Purdy. But he's too close to our. He's too close. He's in the way. You follow me? He's in the way.
If Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts changed uniforms, it'd be the same result.
Pretty much. I mean, look, they play the game differently, but the fact of the matter is they both
it's not how you drive, it's how you arrive.
Right. The fact of the matter is they're two guys that were not highly touted coming out. They were not highly touted. And both of those guys have played above the rim.
See how people put tags on people? Not only just your GM, but how you look at a guy. Like when I say this, Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts are pretty much the same quarterback. Jalen Hurts is 10 times better. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they get the same result.
If Purdy, I bet you this. If Purdy was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, Eagles fans would defend him to the ends of the earth. You know what I mean?
Well, now you're taking an off ramp here, okay? Now you're
listen. Let's be honest.
If an off ramp on me
if the Eagles drafted Brock Purdy, and I'm not saying he's better than Hurts.
He's doing this.
Listen. I don't think Brock Purdy is better than Jalen Hurts. I don't think that. But here's what I'm saying. My point is,
but he'll have the same results.
Right. Exactly. Brock Purdy is an underdog. Brock Purdy has been doubted his entire time in the NFL. That's Philadelphia, is it not?
Yes.
Yes. But Nick Foles doubted. That's literally the basis of how Philadelphia moves. But again, he plays for the 49ers, and the 49ers are in the Eagles' way. So therefore, by default, we have to hate him. And I understand that, and I'm not gonna debate that. I totally understand the dynamic. But I just want people to acknowledge. Go ahead.
Brock Purdy in the last 2 years has been to 2 NFC title games and now a Super Bowl. And he's the last player taken in the draft. And when anybody out there tells me, game manager, well, if a game fucking manager is 2
sign
NFC
me up.
And one NFL championship, one NFC championship, and 60 minutes away from hoisting a Lombardi trophy,
sign me up.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's why I tell you, dude, this quarterback thing, when I found that stat out, that metric, that you drafted 30 quarterbacks in the first round nearly in the last decade, one guy's won it. 3 have gone. Look, I don't know, man.
Stills, I'm not in this for the beauty pageants. I'm trying to win football games. So I don't care if a guy's drafted in the first round, okay, whatever. He has pretty hair, okay, Trevor Lawrence, okay, whatever. But I want the guy that's going to execute at the highest level, period. That's why I love Jalen Hurts, because he had a down year, but I knew Jalen Hurts wasn't a finished product from the beginning. But because what happened in 2022, we looked at him as just this like, oh, he's arrived, and it's like, well, no, he still has to work some things out. The defenses are going to throw things at him that he hasn't seen before. You know what I mean? He has to go through all the growing pains that any other quarterback has to go through. But I'm still rolling with Jalen Hurts. That's my guy. You know what I mean? So
and I respect that. But see, a guy like Senor, when he says, dude, Jalen Hurts had a spectacular year last year. This year, I'll go deeper than what Tone did. When you have that many turnovers, I don't believe he played well. And so the Jalen Hurts' last 2 seasons, aren't they a complete opposite of what they were? How's that not this? So are you really supposed to sit here and praise the guy who had almost 20 turnovers?
See, we got to be
really supposed to praise that when last year he had 6 interceptions.
Right. See, we got to be
supposed to praise that.
Listen, we got to be fair about this, right? Last year when Dak Prescott had on him turnovers, everybody was saying he had a terrible season. When Josh Allen has a lot of turnovers, no matter what numbers he puts up, people say terrible season. So what makes Jalen Hurts
4 straight AFC East titles?
Right, but what makes Jalen Hurts exempt from that? Because he's ours.
Yeah,
if we're going to be fair and judge it correctly, Jalen Hurts did not have a good season. He didn't. It was average. It was okay. You know what I mean?
Don't you think Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson are more in line with one another the last 2 years?
Oh, you mean as far as like how things went for them?
Yeah,
like during the season.
Last year, Hurts had an MVP season.
Yeah. I think the
Lamar
difference is
didn't.
Lamar. I think the difference is Lamar got hurt, and that's the difference. But other than that, though,
Hey, Tone.
no, it matters. It matters. It
Hey,
matters.
man, you get hurt. That's not Jalen's fault.
No. I know. It matters. It matters. I'm just trying to, acknowledge the whole prism. But yeah, the bottom line is you got to come in and produce every single year, because every single year someone's going to call your legacy or call your resume into question, right? Jalen Hurts, yes, he has a track record of protecting the ball, but he had a year where he didn't do that well, and we have to acknowledge that, and it's okay because I think he's going to bounce back from that. But again, I'm basing it off of his history, not one anomaly season that I think it is. I think Jalen Hurts figures it out.
Listen,
right?
He has another high turnover year. We got a problem. Houston, we have a problem.
Yes, and back-to-back years at that, we got a problem.
Okay.
Now, if 10 years from now he has another hot, I'm like, okay, all right,
Now, also, I'll tell you this. Here's what I'll accept. He throws for 32 touchdowns and has 11 picks, and throws for 4,400 yards.
I can roll with that.
The NFC title game. I don't fucking care.
Right.
I'm good with that.
I'll put it to you this way: if Jalen Hurts would have delivered the same stats this year, but they made it
half the turnovers, he's good.
Listen, keep the turnovers, right? Let's just say everything happened the way it happened this year, stat wise, but the Eagles make it to the Super Bowl. I'm not gonna say he had a bad year. I'm not, because he overcame it. You feel me?
Okay.
The problem was the Eagles couldn't overcome the turnovers. That was the biggest problem. They couldn't overcome them, and that's why it was a bad year.
And shit coaching.
Yes, and terrible coaching. Yes, cannot forget that.
Okay. So I saw this big press release, man. You guys do.
Oh my God, I know where you're going.
Hey, you guys do things in Philly grandiose, man. I mean, I looked over at the Eagle website, man. There's this like President Biden type like fucking statement about the hiring of Kellen Moore. Like this was like something like a proclamation in Philly that this guy's going to get like one of Tone's 700 million keys to the city of Philly. That, you know what, I'm with you, Tone. I thought there was only one key, but hey, I'm good. But here, listen, there was like a beatitude, or it was like, you put them on like the church door. Dear Philadelphia Eagle fans, I'm here to tell you, Kellen Moore, this is like the saint from Rome coming in. This is unbelievable. Holy shit, this guy's fucking great. I can't wait to work. I'm going like, not a guy on the planet in Philadelphia wants someone to come in and take their fucking job from him. You lost your job to the guy and you're praising him? Come on, Nick. Shut the hell up. No one believes you.
They're trying so hard.
Dude, aren't they? You're going over and above. You should have said nothing.
All you got to do is post the hire Kellen Moore, and that's it. We didn't, me personally, I didn't need a statement from Nick Sirianni. What do I need a statement for? Like, make it make sense.
Okay, here, I'll make sense for
they're trying.
Yale.
They're trying to
coach look like an ass clown.
But what they think they're doing is
they're bullshitting you.
Is validating.
Yes.
Nick Sirianni's support. They're trying to make it seem. They're trying to make it seem like Nick Sirianni is just completely on board with everything. Really, you think Nick Sirianni wants to? Hey, listen, I'm a firm believer that most men, when they get off from work, they go home and pillow talk with the wife, and everything that they claim they agree with at work at home, I can't stand that motherfucker.
Absolutely,
you know what I'm saying?
I'm with you. Yeah, okay, honey, sure. Hey, who was the guy that was the guy that took care of the house in Django?
Oh my God, you talking about Samuel Jackson?
Yeah, who was that character? Because that's Sirianni.
I forget his name. I forget his name.
That's who Sirianni is.
Oh my God. I forget his name.
He gonna sleep in the big house.
He said he gonna sleep in the big house.
Hey, Snowball. No way. No, dude.
Yo, man.
Who you calling that? Oh, that's who he is.
His name was Steven. His name was Stephen or Steven, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So what can I call him? What is his name? Yeah, he's Steven. No, Nicky. He's Nicky.
Oh man, that's funny. That is funny, man. That's funny. Nick Sirianni's in the big house.
Wait a minute. He's going to sleep in the big house? Yes.
I just feel like it's so corny. Like just lay low, man. Play it cool. Why
Right.
did
Dude, you don't that's what organizations do that have conviction. This fucker's my OC. He's my DC. Move next to the next thing.
they're trying too hard to convince me that Nick Sirianni is okay with everything. You ain't got to convince me. I already know he's not. But guess what? The more you play it cool, the more I see you have the courage of your convictions. But when you start trying to, hey, Nick Sirianni's on board with this. I'll just okay, all right.
Hey,
Whatever.
Nick, I'm gonna put your ass in the hot box if you keep this shit up. Come on, man. Dude, they really go.
It's just weird. It's just weird to me.
Dude, it is weird. Tony, they go over and above. They go over and above to justify themselves when
It's
they
called
don't
PR.
have to.
PR. Whoever's in the PR department, they need to be reevaluated as well.
You mean Bobby?
Who?
Bobby Lane.
Oh, I had no idea that's who it was.
Oh, hey, Bob. Hey, Dan, how come you're being critical of my GM? Because. How come you're being critical of our team? Because.
They said because.
Hey, why? And I go, you're 10-1. I guarantee you lose 4 more games. We'll see about that. Okay, so I didn't text him back. I left it where it was because you went 1-7. Because see, unlike Nick, I didn't have to validate me being right on that.
It was already
the team did it.
The proof was in the pudding.
Right. So why drive that point home? That's my point on Nick.
We already know what the situation is. Why continue to embarrass this man? They don't realize that's what they're doing.
So, early prediction. You think Kellen Moore helps Jalen?
Early prediction. I say yeah. I think he helps him.
I have to sneak this last one in here.
Yeah.
So everyone over here watching and listening, this dude turned me on to a great metric website.
Oh yes. Spot Track. Yeah.
Dude, he did. And I'm not sure I believe this one, but I'm going to go with it. Derrick Henry for $4.3 million.
When you said that number, it made me
tell me you went and looked it up, because I looked it up.
It was when I saw it, I was like, really that low? And then they got Saquon.
Swift has got a higher market value.
And I only think it's because of his age. That's the only reason I can make sense of that.
He's a 1,200-yard back at 4.3 a carry.
I did
4.3.
4.3. That's
Sign
insane.
him. Draft someone if you want to go there.
That's insane. You
Derrick Henry. So you don't give him the ball 280 times. You're not going to do that anyway.
I want to power back.
Say he gains you this 1,000 yards on 198 carries.
I'll take that.
But he has 4.5 yards a carry, and he's got 10 touchdowns.
10 touchdowns, right? Exactly. It's worth it.
And he's a beast in the red zone.
Because this is what you can do. You signed it because listen, I think about this number. The Eagles let Miles Sanders walk, and the Panthers paid him $6.5 million per season, right? And the Eagles had a running back room that was filled with, I believe, 3 or 4 guys that amounted to that exact number, $6.5 million. So if $6.5 million is your cutoff, okay, $4.3 million, that leaves you with $2.2 million to play with that running back. I'm drafting a guy with that. And now I got Derrick Henry, and I got a young running back behind him. There we go. There's your $6.5 million, Howie. Now you got a running back position.
How about your tush push with Henry, Hurts, and Kelsey? Hey, dude, that'd be criminal.
Listen, first of all, with Derrick Henry, I wouldn't even need that anymore. Like Jalen Hurts, like if I got Derrick Henry, Jalen Hurts, you're not brotherly shoving nothing.
Yeah. Well, I'll take him at 4.3.
I would too.
How about this? If you really had any balls on you, you would have Henry and re-sign Swift and it costs you $11 million to have DeAndre Swift and Derrick Henry as your running back. And by the way, Derrick Henry is also a motherfucker when it comes to pass protection.
He can block his ass off.
Can you imagine the O-line having – you turn around and you're like, Jalen Hurts, Derrick Henry, and that O-line?
Right. Or you got Derrick Henry, DeAndre Swift, Jalen Hurts in the two running back set. That's going to be crazy.
See, Josh Jacobs is 10-6.
Yeah,
they're not going to do that.
Yeah, they're not doing that.
Barkley's 9-9. They're not doing that.
Not doing that.
And by the way, do I think Jacobs and Barkley get that number? I don't.
I don't either.
I don't think Eckler gets the 7-4.
I think Saquon is lucky to get 7.
Yeah, somewhere about there, 7-2, 7-1. Austin Eckler will be around 5.5. Swift, I'll tell you what, man. Swift on the open market at 6-7. Am I paying that? I don't know.
I think I'm willing to argue.
I don't know.
I'm willing to argue Miles Sanders kind of ruined the running back market last year because he was the only running back that got paid, and he did nothing for the Panthers. So now you got teams looking at that like, well, $6.5 million a year, and a guy did nothing. Why would I pay that? And the running back market is oversaturated with talent now. So there's a chance the Eagles probably could get Henry for a lower price or a decent price, or they could bring back DeAndre Swift. It's all possible because
you gave Rashad Penny 2.5,
and he did nothing for you.
Why wouldn't you give a guy who's a beast like that 4.5?
My thing is, if you're willing to take a flyer on Rashad Penny, how can you not take a flyer on Derrick Henry? Is it even a flyer? It's not.
No,
it's guaranteed production.
No, it's guaranteed production. He's never not produced.
You're not willing to pay an extra $2 million for Derrick Henry, and you just paid 2.5 to Rashad Penny, and you didn't even play him?
I thought he was going to be like 8 or 9 million. When I saw under 5, I went, "Fuck that! I'm getting this guy."
I don't see why not. In my opinion, you need a power back.
Have no money 4.3 for a power back. You ain't finding that in the draft. I'll tell you that.
At that level, you're probably not.
Dude, how much does Derrick Henry help your offense?
He helps instantly. He takes a lot of, in my opinion, he takes a lot of pressure off Jalen Hurts from a running standpoint too. He takes it, and also he helps in pass protection. He helps in pass protection too.
Can you imagine Jalen Hurts' runs on how wide open he would be?
And it will actually open up the passing lanes.
Do you understand that when I'm a defender and I see a guy like that in the backfield, and I know what that guy does to people, and he makes highlight reels, and he puts pelts on the wall, and he fucks people up, I don't want to be on a highlight reel where my head is hitting the turf. And so I got to get my ass low because that guy, and then I got to worry. I'm worried about him. Get this. Jalen Hurts would have wide open lanes and throwing the ball. The tight end would be insane open. Block and release. Man, that just makes a ton of sense to me. And by the way, I don't want him carrying the ball 300 times.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. I'm totally comfortable with having him carry the ball 160, 180 times.
Yeah, that's right. You know what I'm totally comfortable with him being? The new LeGarrette Blount.
Exactly. And then you find a way to bring back Swift, or if not, you draft the guy. And now you got this young, elusive back, and you pair him with a power back in Derrick Henry. Your backfield is going to be tremendous. And you got Jalen Hurts. His running ability is always a threat, no matter what you're doing. But I will say this though. The Eagles have so many holes. They have so many holes to fill on defense. They need to restore depth at the running back and wide receiver position and on the O-line. I don't know if I highly doubt Derrick Henry is at the top of their priorities.
They need a power back.
I'm with you, but I'm trying to think like them. And I highly doubt they even consider that.
Isn't it funny? All the positions we address, they don't.
Ain't that
safety, linebacker, running back, and they'll give us some sort of twisted bullshit answer on how they operate. All those, get this. So San Francisco has McCaffrey, Warner, and when healthy, Hufanga back there.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City's got all these new young dudes that are rolling around, and we're talking about Nicholas Morrow and Reed Blankenship, and we're talking about
Kenny Gainwell,
all people that are nobodies. I mean, come on, man. Dude, it's got to get to a point where people are going like this. Jesus, criminy. You haven't drafted a linebacker in the first round since 79. I can't remember when you put a safety back there in a high pick. Well, last year they got Brown in the third. That's a high pick. But I mean, just you're right. There's a lot of holes. Running back, power back's probably fourth on their list. You got to get depth at edge. You got to get linebackers. And get this, Tone. It's not that you need a linebacker. You need a linebacker room.
Yes.
You need a safety room.
There's only two linebackers, I believe, right now that's on the books. And that's N'Kobe Dean and the undrafted kid, I think, Ben Van Sumeren. And other than that, they're dudes.
Vanderbilt. No, wait. Temple has a better linebacking core than the Eagles do right now.
Hey, you just made Rob Ellis happy with that one.
I leave you with that.
You just made my man Rob happy with that one.
I leave you with that one, Tone. Hey, I'm really glad that Kellen Moore's here, man.
Hey, listen. Hopefully, it's a fit. We'll see.
Hey, man, Nikki. Good job, Nikki.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you approved, Nick. I'm glad.
Yeah, Nick. Way to go, man. I mean, it probably was. It probably was tuck and go here a little bit, whether or not, Kellen was going to be here because of the way you put that word.
You're such an asshole.
Hey,
you're such an asshole.
Hey, really? Wait, you just noticing that now? Thank you.
Oh my God, man.
Zach, watch this. Thank you. Thanks, Tone. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. It's always fun. Thank you.
That is the great Tone. All right, don't forget. Rohan Marley will join us at 5:30 Eastern. We'll reset, hit the like button, keep it here, National Football Show.